How do you think these mega billionaires like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Mark Zuckerberg have gotten so wealthy? It's by owning a disproportionate amount of shares in their company and then having a liquidity event. Now ask yourself, how many friends of yours have chased that fast-growing startup in the hopes of getting super wealthy as well? I was fortunate enough 2.5 years ago to join a fast-growing tech unicorn out of Utah. We went public 2 weeks ago, and it was the largest IPO in Utah history. In today's video, I'm gonna talk about how much money you actually can expect to make working at a company for years prior to an IPO, what it's like working for a tech unicorn, and breaking down the equity structure of what you can expect joining companies that are private and then hope to go public one day. Owning equity in a company is like subscribing to a YouTube channel. Just by subscribing below and seeing that number increase, you're technically an owner of this channel and get to dictate some of the content I make. So make sure to hit the subscribe button below. When I joined my hypergrowth tech company 2.5 years ago, in my offer letter, I received RSUs. RSUs stand for restricted stock units. And if you join a private tech company, you should expect to receive RSUs as well. RSUs are essentially restricted shares in the company. You have some ownership, some equity in that company, but they're restricted. And you typically have a vesting schedule. A vesting schedule is essentially, let's say you receive 1,000 RSUs for joining XYZ company. Let's say you start January 1st of 2021. You joined XYZ company January 1st, 2021, you receive 1,000 RSUs. You don't get all those RSUs in one time. Let's say, and what's common for my company is you don't receive your first vesting schedule until a year after you start. So January 1st, 2022, you would receive 25% of your shares. So you would receive 250 shares so that you own those shares, and then you have 750 RSUs outstanding. And those are gonna vest over a certain time horizon. In my situation, it was 4 years. So every quarter for the next 3.5 years, I receive however many quarters total there are divided by 750 shares. So each quarter I receive like 35, 44 restricted stock units. You can receive an infinite amount of RSUs in these companies. A lot of companies will say, hey, we'll give you so many RSUs, this is how much they're worth. But here's the thing, your RSUs are worthless until your company has a liquidity event. A liquidity event is essentially when your company either has an initial public offering, IPO, you merge with another company that happens to be public or private, you can work out some deals, you're acquired by a company. Those restricted shares are worthless until you have one of these liquidity events, and the most common event is an IPO. My company IPO'd 2 weeks ago, so let me break down what you can expect to make from an IPO. The hypergrowth tech unicorn that I work for is about 20 years old, and I joined 2.5 years ago, so I wasn't technically a day one or an early employee, but I still received a good amount of RSUs. But the thing I want you to understand first and foremost is that the earlier you join a startup, the more risk there's gonna be, but hypothetically, the more RSUs, the more equity you're gonna receive in the company. This is something I really want you to understand, because the earlier you join, the more risk, but the higher upside. And that's why some of these employees at the Facebooks of the world can get super wealthy in tandem to the Zuckerbergs. Like look up Chamath Palihapitiya. He's someone many of you probably know. He was an early Facebook employee. He made $1 billion off that IPO. And I think he was employee number 20 or 30. So it just goes to show you don't have to be the founder. You don't have to be employee number 2. If you're early on the ground, you can receive a lot of upside. But if you're later on in the game, like me, joining just a couple years before the public event, you still receive a good amount, but not nearly enough to go retire on a beach. What I want you to understand as well is that in 2019, the failure rate of startups was 90%. Most startups are going to fail. So most people that try and join these startups, hypothetically, the startups are gonna fail and your RSUs are gonna be worth nothing. And one of the trade-offs as well is that although you do receive a lot of RSUs, equity in a company, oftentimes working for startups, your salary is gonna be a lot lower. My salary was pretty low when I started, but I'm gonna make a lot more now on the upside of this liquidity event, and let me explain. Another thing I want you to know is that I currently own about 1,800 RSUs in my company. So some of those have been vesting over the last year. Some of them are still outstanding, but let's just say we're at a blank slate. I have 1,800 RSUs. My stock price is currently trading roughly, it's went down the last couple of days, but let's just say it's set at 50. If you do $50 a share times 1,800 RSUs, we're at 90 grand to 100 grand. That's gonna vest over the next 4 years. So just by working at my company, assuming the price of the IPO does not go up or down, which is unlikely, that's about 100 grand total, 25 grand a year. Just by being at the company, being an employee, that's what I can expect to make. Let's say the price goes from $50 to $100 per share. That's gonna be about 200 grand total of just an RSUs. And just by staying at the company for the next 4 years, I'll make 50 grand a year just by being an employee of the company. And that doesn't even include my base pay salary and my variable pay commission for selling, because I am an account executive in software sales. So it just goes to show, if you play the long game, it will play off. Spend the first couple years of your career getting good at your craft, and then spend the next couple years really capitalizing on that. But you may be thinking, Trent, that's great that you got into the company at the right time and worked out for you. How do I get in at a company in a similar time to you? A couple things I want you to look at. It's an art and a science. You really can't, no one can tell what companies are going to be successful in the future. If you could go start your own venture capital firm or private equity and make billions. No one can definitively say that company is going to be successful. But what you can do, just being the average person like you and I, go on Google and start searching the Forbes top 100 rising tech companies, the most innovative, disruptive tech companies. You can start getting an idea of who are the players, and then look into some of these top venture firms like Sequoia, Andreessen Horowitz, Y Combinator. Who are they investing in? Oftentimes companies have series A, B, C, D of investing rounds prior to going public. Figure out who are these premier venture firms investing in these companies, and try and identify that early on and go work at that company, because that's just a better sign. If a company is getting $50 million from Andreessen Horowitz, most likely they're gonna have a higher probability of a successful liquidity event than a company that doesn't have that funding. At the same time, that can be completely inverse as well. It comes down to how much do you believe in the leader, how much do you believe in the product market fit, how can you contribute to a successful outcome? So there's a lot that goes into it, but in today's video, I just wanted you to understand how much do you make in a tech IPO. Working for a tech unicorn 2.5 years prior to the IPO, I will have made about $100,000 just in equity, and that's gonna continue to grow. I don't plan to sell ever. I'm gonna hold it at least for the duration of my employment. So it just goes to show, if you play the long game, if you get in at the right time, you can get lucky. That's by no means enough money for me to go retire, but it is enough money for me to put a down payment on a house. It is enough money for me to say, it would be foolish for me to leave the golden handcuffs per se. So it's really exciting, it's really fun, and now it's time to go execute each and every day to make sure it's successful. I hope you got some value from this video. I wanna help you. Make sure to like this video if you got some value today. I'm happy to answer any questions you have on LinkedIn or in the comments below. So let me know how I can help, and I'll see you in the next video.